Computer on.
We go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos where time and space converge. A place beyond man's vision, but not his reach. It is the most mysterious and awesome point in the universe, where the here and now may be forever.
On my ship, you ask.
It is unavoidable, moving through space, swallowing everything in its path. Radio waves, light.
Are you programmed to speak?
Even planets and stars.
Thrusters.
That madman is headed straight for the black hole. What'll we do?
We wait.
Journey that begins where everything ends.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your mission commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we are once again very happy to share with you our friend and yours, Lord Blood-Rah. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Disney's epic or not so epic film, The Black Hole. Straight away, let's kick it over to Lord Blood-Rah. Welcome back to the show, sir.
My lords and ladies and citizens of Planet 8, I'm always thrilled to be here. And a confession first before we start. It was my suggestion to discuss this very odd Disney film, The Black Hole, And I want to give everyone and the Planet 8 crew my sincerest apologies.
So you were the one.
I was the one. It's totally my fault. Now, before, don't, I'm not trying to hate on the film, but wow, what a unique artifact in the Disney archive and in science fiction in general. Just such a bizarre, strange film all the way around.
Well, when Lord Blood-Rah and he had messaged me and says, "Hey, you guys ever did a show on the black hole?" I love the black hole. I loved it as a kid. I'm a big Disney fan, and I haven't seen it for over 15, 20 years. And it's a different movie as an adult, even as an adult child, versus a 9-year-old. This movie came out back in 1979. Walt Disney's son-in-law, Ron Miller, was involved in this, and he's the one that kind of pushed it through and made it happen. Peter Ellenshaw, who did all these background drawings for Disney films, they brought him out of retirement. I mean, this was going to be like a big deal. And around this time, Disney animation was kind of languishing. They didn't really have anything. I think the Black Cauldron came out around this time. It wasn't until they were in a really bizarre place. And look, you had the Poseidon Adventure, you had Earthquake, Star Wars came out, all these epic films, disaster films, and so the minds at Disney, and this did get passed around to several different hands, several different executives, because at first it was like, well, let's talk about space, and then it'd be cool to have a black hole. What if we did this? And then it just kind of became like, okay, mad scientist, spaceship, robots. I think a lot of the robot stuff was inspired by Star Wars.
Oh, easy. Oh yeah.
But I mean, it basically evolved into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea out in space.
Yeah.
You hit the head.
Reinhardt was Nemo, it was
Reinhardt is Nemo.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And it was the original concept was for a disaster film in space.
Yeah,
and through different permutations of that, the script was handed off to different people and things added on, and various things were added simply because Star Wars was so popular at the time. There's a character, we'll get into the beginnings of the plot in a minute, but there's a character that has a psychic connection to one of the robots, Vincent, and I'm sure that's the influence of Star Wars. They saw Star Wars and said, hey, they can do that mind thing. Let's have the robot. Robots are good. Robots are cool. Let's have one of them have a psychic link with one of the characters just because, mind stuff.
That was one of the strangest things to me in the movie. All of a sudden, like, oh, well, do your ESP with the robot. It was like, what? What? Why? Where's this coming from? What?
But, if we take listeners, we may have some younger listeners. I don't know. But they may all be old codgers like
younger
us.
Than 30 or 40?
If we take all the listeners back to the early 70s, disaster films were huge. Earthquake, Towering Inferno, Tidal Wave, all these things were like huge. And that's where, like Frank said, that's where this started as a disaster film in space with a black hole. But I was amazed when I was reading about it, how many writes and rewrites and rewrites there were of this thing over the years, because it was like early 70s disaster film evolving into late 70s Star Wars influenced sci-fi. And so all the iterations and writers that went through it, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
It is, and it speaks to, this is the flavor of the month in the summer of 72, rewrites later to, the fall, winter of 79. The tastes of the American, world cinema movie watchers had changed, and so they tried to, I don't know, I think the script really suffered because it was almost a potluck of those ideas going through the years.
Right. It was derivative.
Yes. Absolutely.
But it's funny, as much as it in some ways, borrows a lot from Star Wars, to me, overall, it had a very 1950s sci-fi feel to it in a lot of ways, especially with the characters, having sort of the mad scientist who's, has all these plots that he's put into motion, and then the characters on the Palomino. You have sort of the brave captain. You have kind of the sidekick young guy. The woman who's, other than her psychic abilities with the robot, I don't know what she's doing there really, except being rescued. And there's a lot of what feels like 50s tropes going on in this movie.
And you know what's funny too is, back in 79, 80, I can't speak for you guys, but I had hair down my shoulders. And everybody had long hair back then. Even
pictures.
Yeah, even like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford in Star Wars, their hair was fairly long. Mm-hmm. This one, they're all like clean cut Disney cuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. That's kind of the Dean Jones type, looking characters. The Pat
Except
Boone,
for Reinhardt, whose hair was white.
Well, see, Reinhardt was the eccentric, scientist guy, but all the rest of them, whether it was Tony Perkins or whatever, they all had fairly, the real clean cut Disney look.
Right.
Well, one of the things that kind of struck me too, actually, before we get into that, I thought it was interesting. Gary Nelson directed this film. Now, he had directed some films before this for Disney, like Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
Remember the Freaky Friday?
He did Freaky Friday. He'll be perfect for this.
What about that movie made Disney executives say, yes, let's hand him this blockbuster science fiction epic?
I mean, look, he directed episodes Gilligan's Island, Happy Days, Patty Duke Show.
Get smart.
But for whatever reason, they thought, okay, what was it? Coweta County later on with Johnny Cash. I mean, the guy had a good career, but
see, a lot of times studios look and say, they don't say like, oh, this guy would be good for sci-fi. They look at him and say, this guy would be good to bring this film in on time and under budget.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's like their only real consideration.
Experience in doing.
They've worked with him. They know him. They can. I don't know that he was the first pick, though. I think some of the stuff I read, it sounded like they had somebody else, and that guy dropped out, and Gary Nelson became.
The script.
I think yes, throughout the years, I'm sure there were. Yeah. So the basic plot, the basic premise of the movie, which is solid science fiction, I think, is the crew of the USS Palomino are returning from a deep space mission, and they come across a black hole, which they repeat time and time again is the most destructive force in the galaxy. Know that. In this universe, the black hole, the most destructive force in the galaxy. And they see hovering on the event horizon of the black hole, or close to it, a ship that is apparently, they think it's a derelict, and they cannot figure out why it's just hovering there. It should be sucked in like everything else around it. So they find out that the ship wasn't captained by, but the only person alive now is a Dr. Hans Reinhardt, who is a member of the ship's crew, who has developed a way to defy the immense gravity of the black hole and just kind of hover there. The entire crew of the ship is dead, quote unquote. And basically, Reinhardt is obsessed with going into the black hole. The crew of the Palomino know if he does that, they're all gonna be killed, and wackiness ensues. Now, as time goes on, oh, and by the way, let me back up. The cast of this movie is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Maximillian Schell, incredible actor as Hans Reinhardt. Anthony Perkins from Psycho, Ernest Borgnine, And the voices of the robots, who were uncredited, Roddy McDowall and Slim Pickens. Great cast. Who all for some reason seem to be hypnotized, and or they're kind of moving at like 3/4 speed for some reason. I don't know what it is. First of all, and I've looked for this and I can't find an explanation. The entire film was ADR'd, so they re-recorded all of the dialogue after the movie was shot.
I wonder if it's because I know, like the first Star Trek film, they had all those instrument panels which had film loops behind them, and it made so much noise they had to do a lot of ADR for all the bridge scenes. And I wonder if it was something similar with a lot of effects equipment on site.
Yeah,
all the gizmos.
Maybe. Yeah,
that's the only thing I can think. Yeah, like Forbidden Planet too. Same thing. Robbie was so loud that some of that had to be ADR, but a lot of it was just.
Well, yeah, because I was reading about the robots, and it's like they had Vincent on like a teeter-totter, and they'd like push him down the hallway, and they'd be pushing the teeter-totter up and down, so it would look like he's kind of bobbing and floating in the air.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that probably made noise.
Yeah. But even there, the performances are just so dead, just deadpan.
Let me just say, when we do our Planet 8 film, I want the three of you to put me on a teeter-totter so I look like I'm flying down the corridor. That sounds like fun.
And we'll have to record all our voices after.
Yeah.
Because Larry's making too much noise on the damn teeter-totter.
As long as he's not shooting webs out of his.
Well, one never. That'll be done in post.
Yeah.
But I was one thing that did impress me in the movie though was the wire work.
Yeah, there was
and all the zero gravity scenes, and I was reading that they actually shot those scenes upside down, so the wires weren't like hanging from the wires. The wires were underneath them. And then they paint the wires the same color as the background because there's no way to get in there with a computer and erase wires like they do now. Oh. They had to paint them the same color as the background. And I guess they figure people will be, if you're looking for wires, you're looking above, right? So you're not concentrating below the actor to see the wires. So all those scenes where they're floating around the ship and things, were all done upside down. And then I guess at the end, when the ship is breached and all the debris flying out and everything, that was all done in wind tunnels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With debris actually flying around. In fact, one of the actors mentioned that he got struck by one of the debris like in the eyebrow and had to get stitched up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was, that happens, that the ship gets hit by asteroids.
And
meteors reaches the ship. And you got the Indiana Jones classic giant rolling boulder. This time it's an asteroid, which is cool, but why are they still breathing?
Oh, yeah, they can definitely breathe in space because they're all jumping in space and everything else. And
they can breathe in space. Is that a function of the black hole that it sucks in everything but oxygen? What?
Does anybody remember Marine Boy?
Oh, yes. The oxygen gum.
Yeah, the oxygen gum. They may have some of that up there in space.
Could be. Who knows?
We know Alan Dean Foster, of course, did the novelization of this. And apparently he was so aghast with all the scientific inaccuracies that he was like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. We have to change, this and this and this and this and this, because there were so many things that just were wrong technically.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But that was... Seeing it again was the thing. The thing that struck me was the dead performances, and then I started thinking, especially considering the end, which we'll get to,
especially the crew.
Well, the crew, yeah. Fair enough, yeah. Were they going for a 2001 type vibe? Because you look at those performances in 2001. which in 2001 it works because these are trained astronauts. They're trained to, you got a problem, you go from A to B to C, and you don't freak out or you're dead. So those performances work in that film. In this one, a Disney high adventure in space, it doesn't work.
Well, I kind of wonder
unevenness, right? It's
well, I kind of wonder how the actual live performances compared to ADR after. Because when you're running and you're involved in the action and you're acting, you've got much more motivation than you do when you're just standing in front of a microphone and looping your voice.
But these are, again, the cast is great, so I would think they would. I blame the director more so. I would think that if these actors were told, a little bit more, we're given a proper feel for what the film was going for, I think their performances would have been a little more lively, a little more interesting, and the script is kind of to blame too. It just felt like they threw things in just to have the actors saying things, and there were a couple of just flat out continuity errors. There are two robots. One was on board the black hole ship. What was
the Cygnus?
The Cygnus. Thank you. Right, the Cygnus. One was on board the Cygnus, and he was a more beat up, older version of Vincent, who comes over from the Palomino. Vincent was Roddy McDowall. Bob was Slim Pickens. Yeah. They meet, and they meet at this robot shooting competition. I'm not kidding you. These robots have a shooting competition, and one of them is like the gunslinger. He's all black, of course, as gunslingers are, and they're shooting these little balls of energy that are shot out into space. And, Bob does his thing, but he beat this other guy before, so the guy, doesn't like him. So the gunslinger robot doesn't like him, beats him up. Vincent beats the guy and beats the gunslinger robot. Robot gets so upset that he, blows a fuse and freaks out and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the gunslinger, he was sort of like Yul Brynner in Westworld.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for. Later, at the end of that scene, Bob says to Vincent, meet me in somewhere, some storage, whatever. They meet there, and Bob says, hi, I'm Bob.
I noticed that too.
And explains his name, which is ridiculous. Bob stands for Organic Cleanup Battalion. They really just wanted to name him Bob and tried to fill in wherever they could. Like Vincent is virtual information necessary centralized. It's like, man, just name them and don't bother trying to explain it. It doesn't matter.
It needs to be more organic, like Wally.
Or I am a QT,
right?
Something like that, which could have easily been Vincent's designation. But yeah, he introduces himself after they've already been meeting, and this robot gunslinger showed emotion. Later in the movie, they say they mention something about, well, Reinhardt couldn't have given these robots emotion, could he? That would be insane. The robots already have emotion.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? The robots already have emotion. So it felt like almost no one associated with this film knew what science fiction was, or
it was a potpourri that just kind of got jumbled up and put through a Cuisinart.
Yeah. Now was that thing with the robots? Was that just bad editing?
Yeah, I wondered if they
might have shifted the scene.
Sequence.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
And so, looking at the effects too, you just had Star Wars, and of course, 2001 earlier in the decade. So these effects are a little lacking as far as, they have some beautiful, matte paintings and things, but It's funny because I heard that they tried to rent some of the computer gear from ILM,
right?
But at the time they were using it for this little film called The Empire Strikes Back, and so it was not available, and so they had to basically create their own computerized motion cameras and things, and it's almost like they were inventing things on the fly as they were making the movie.
Oh yeah. The special effects weren't bad.
Just real quickly, the black hole effect, I thought still stood up today, and the Cygnus, that's a beautiful ship. For them to throw that stuff together on whatever budget, kudos to whoever was responsible for that.
Yeah, the Cygnus, they had like a 12-foot miniature. That was pretty detailed. I thought that looked good, and the black hole. I mean, the exterior, those shots I thought were great. It was all the kind of interior work with the lasers and stuff that didn't.
Yeah. Now the wire work was impressive too, though. Sure. I mean, with Maximillian and Vincent and like Bob had said earlier, there was no CGI, so they used old school techniques to make that stuff work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like the Cygnus was a great design, but then like the Palomino looked like an old Apollo capsule or something. I was like, what the hell is that?
They ran out of money at that point.
Right. Buy an old AMT Apollo capsule model, and
even the escape pod at the end was not very inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely get there.
One of the things, even as I guess more so as a kid, but seeing Ernest Borgnine as a heavy, I mean, McHale's Navy. He's just. And he wasn't like the villain, but he did screw him over by taking the ship. He
was a coward. Yeah.
He was a coward.
That was
you never saw Willard or The Devil's Rain?
Well, and then my wife was like, she hasn't seen Willard, but she's like, wasn't he one of the devils in that Captain Kirk thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, The Devil's Rain. Okay.
And the Captain Kirk thing. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
The Captain Kirk Devil movie.
Yeah. Captain Kirk State movie, where he spoke that funny language. No, that's Esperanto. That's a different one.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I and even the asteroid meteorite, the Indiana Jones. I wonder if Spielberg saw that and was like, I'm going to put that in a movie someday.
Very possibly. Very possibly. I mean,
Well, in talking about because towards the end of the movie, we'll get there, but it reminded me of the Psycho trip in 2001.
Yes.
The space battle, those lights that they were shooting at, Bob, the robots, they did that later on in the Next Generation. Riker and Picard and whatever would shoot those little.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, target practice. Yeah.
The thing that got me too was who was responsible overall for deciding we're gonna make the crew into zombie robot hybrids, but they're still going to know enough to want to have a funeral when one of them passes away.
Right.
I didn't understand.
Very creepy.
Well, you'd have to think that some of them would kind of rebel, or they would, do something other than just blind. If they can have a funeral and all that, then they've got to have some independent thought.
When they pulled the hood back and the one guy just that
was creepy. That was a genuine kind of shock moment for a Disney film. Yeah. But so what? And why did Reinhardt do that?
Yeah,
why? He's evil.
Why and how? And how?
Well, the why is he needed a crew.
But
the how?
How did he couldn't have done that all at once because we see the procedure. So didn't the captain notice? Hey, we're missing crew.
The captain was the first one to go.
Did he? Where is everybody? What's going on here? I don't recognize these robots with the mirrored faces. What's going on here?
This is the greatest mutiny in the history of science fiction, I think.
That's the thing about this film, and admittedly, for whatever reason, as a kid, I didn't see a lot of Disney films. I've done my research a little bit since then, but it's so up and down to me between the goofy stuff with the robot shooting range, and then you've got the reveal of the zombified crew members, or to me the most disturbing thing in this film is when Maximillian kills Anthony Perkins, and Anthony Perkins makes a sound that is absolutely terrifying.
Right. Yeah. He attacks him with these whirling blades.
Yes.
Right through the notebook and then through him. And
right. You don't
like,
see anything. Well, this was the first Disney film to be PG.
Mm-hmm.
So they added a lot of dams and hells in it.
And they wanted it. They went out of their way to make it PG.
Yes.
And they really wanted. And then they also, it wasn't under Touchstone. It was under Buena Vista.
Right.
So they were trying to kind of hide the Disney thing. Even though it was Disney's Black Hole, the release was under Buena Vista because they didn't want people to think it was some Disney kiddie movie. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They, like you say, they went out of their way to make this more of an adult kind of offering. But it's so uneven. You got the goofy, cute robots. Then you've got, being eviscerated by whirling blades.
I mean,
and the zombie.
Nasty.
Yeah, the zombie crew, which was cool. I mean, that's a really good shock moment and really good makeup underneath that mirrored dome.
Yeah, no, it was definitely good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So generally uneven all the way around. And, hijinks ensue on board the ship. They find out that the crew has been zombified and that that Reinhardt has essentially murdered these people. They're still alive, but they're under his will, and he's obsessed with going into the black hole. They think that they're all going to get killed if they go into the black hole. And ultimately, the Palomino is stolen by Ernest Borgnine's character, who was a journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was odd.
And a journalist on a long space mission. It's like, what? Well, you know what, though? And it's just dawned on me. I can't really make too much fun of that because in the novel Planet of the Apes, the person who ends up being the Taylor character was a journalist who went along on this first long range mission.
That's
so
a good one.
I can't really fault that too much. But anyway, the ship ends up going into the black hole. Now, an article I read on the production of this movie, they basically said up until like a couple of days before they filmed the ending, they had no ending. The last line in the script was they go into the black hole. That's all they knew. They're going into the black hole.
But they actually shot 2 endings, right?
Is that? No, I hadn't found that.
Yeah, I read. I think it was the same article. They actually they had one concept where they got permission to shoot in the Sistine Chapel in Italy.
Oh, God, yes, you're right.
And there was a scene where I guess the camera comes out of Adam's eye, and then you see the painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
Right.
And what was it? Yvette Mimieux's character?
I believe so.
I think puts the finger out and like touches the finger,
yes.
And they shot the whole thing. They went to Italy and shot everything, and then they decided to go with this other ending, which I think was the one you were going to talk about.
Right, but they rejected that ending that you're talking about because they didn't want to get that biblical.
Right.
So,
however,
instead, Dr. Reinhardt, who had previously been thrown out into space, just sucked out into space
with his oxygen gum,
still breathe. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, because he had the thing collapse. Part of the ship collapsed on him, right?
Oh no, that's right.
Yeah, he was pinned under.
He was crushed.
Yeah, he was crushed. That's right. He wasn't. Yeah, because going out into space doesn't kill you in this movie. So they go into the black hole and they go through a trippy kind of like Star Trek wormhole kind of a thing where they're having past memories and their trails like they're all on acid. And that's what they were going for. They were trying to make this,
right,
a visual trip, like the end of the 2000. Yeah. So after all that nonsense happens, you see Reinhardt kind of floating through space, and he turns and he sees Maximillian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he goes close to Maximillian, kind of embraces him, and the next shot is, excuse me, you see Reinhardt looking out through the eye slot of Maximillian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now he's
Maximillian
inside
Schell
Maximilian.
ended up in Maximilian's shell.
Well done. Well done. So close up on the face, and you see Reinhardt looking out through the eye slit of Maximilian, which is a beautiful design for a robot. I like Maximilian a lot.
Yeah.
They slowly back out, and Maximilian is standing on this jutting like rock on this mountaintop against a red sky. Keep going back. There are flames, and below you see these kind of natural rock bridge formations with these figures in black cloaks marching past, and out even further than off to the corner you can kind of see their faces, and they all look like the zombified crew of the Cygnus, and it's obvious they are in hell.
Yes.
They're in hell, right?
Yes.
Then out of nowhere, this crystalline kind of arch appears that goes off into infinity. An angel flies down this hallway to the end, and the crew of the Palomino, because they got back on the Palomino, wake up on the other end of the black hole. They're fine, and they're flying towards a planet. That was the end. Even at my age, when I saw the movie, because I saw it when it premiered, I just went, what? What are you... So they flew through heaven and hell? Really? You're going to go with that?
I walked out of the movie as a kid thinking, great, 2001 all over again.
I thought they're trying for 2000. They're trying for 2001, but what just happened?
You know, I often ask myself, was it when worlds collide and they get to that like sanctuary planet at the end of the film, So were these guys, was it heaven, or were they meant to repopulate this new world and this new universe? Or it was left very vague. And talking about, we don't want to go too religious. Well, you've gone there, people.
Yeah. You're there.
That would have been the better ending.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have made that much sense, but it would have been the better ending.
Right. Now, from what I understand, there was a very limited comic book series that the first few issues were retelling of the movie, but then it goes on to them reaching this planet and meeting the inhabitants of the planet and their adventures, and it only went like, I think, 2 issues into that and then got canceled.
Interesting.
So they were, at least in the comic book, they were trying to, trying to extend the story. And if the movie had done better, they could have extended the story, because now they have no idea where they are. Well, it would have been lost in space at this point, right?
Yeah, basically.
It would have been lost in space.
So was the comic book company Gold Key or what?
I believe Gold Key. I think Gold Key, which, of course,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can't imagine that they, after building, but they destroyed most of the sets that they built, not wanting to have a franchise, such as what they tried to do with Tron, and that sequel didn't happen for another 15 years. Unfortunately, Disney didn't do that well in the science fiction film department for a few years there.
Oh. I watched a video. There's a guy, the Scottish guy has a video all about the ending. And to be honest, I can't tell you exactly what he was talking about because I turned it off pretty quickly. But he's talking about how you're not sophisticated enough. If you don't understand the ending, then you're not sophisticated enough, because it's all right there. It's all right there.
Open your eyes, people. Open your damn eyes.
The man,
is right.
The man was in hell because of what he was doing. Everything he did led him to where he was. I'm like, Okay, sure.
Thank you, Jean-Paul Sartre.
They put him in the red robot because the big man, he wouldn't fit in that wee little robot. Poor Bob.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to Bob and Vincent, though, man. They just they disappeared. They didn't make it to heaven or hell.
Vincent was on board the Palomino, so Vincent made it.
It was an escape ship, right?
Yeah.
Well, Palomino got blown to bits.
It's all so confusing. Oh, my God.
Hey, look, I'm going to be honest with you. The last 15, 20 minutes of this film, I was bobbing in and out of consciousness. I was hysterical. Honestly.
I had to spread it over 2 nights because, I kind of...
Yeah,
well, I totally fell asleep during the first viewing, and then I had to watch it again. In fact, I watched it last night. But one thing I will say, if I want to be positive about the film,
sure,
even though it's kind of out of place in some scenes, I love John Barry. So to get John Barry to do the score,
I was going to say I
great.
felt like it was a mismatch for this movie, to be honest.
I thought the theme, when you're watching the very beginning and they have the theme, that theme is great. And I wish he would have kind of repeated that theme throughout the movie, but that's the only time you hear it is during the opening credits.
Yeah.
But that was the highlight of the soundtrack.
I felt there were scenes where it needed to be livelier and it was sort of dragging, but that's kind of the whole movie. It's kind of... I almost thought if they had a livelier soundtrack, it might have helped with the less emotive acting and
a less crappy soundtrack. But the film was crappy, so.
What was interesting too about that it had an overture. Both Star Trek: The Motion Picture and Black Hole were the last films to have overtures.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, when I watched it on Disney, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. They had an overture for this." I remember because I thought for a minute something was wrong with the TV.
Me too. I was like, "Wait a minute, there's no picture."
Right.
Yeah, I commented to Lieutenant Debbie. I'm like, "Well, that's one way to save budget on the effects." We're in the black hole right now.
Yes. There you go.
It's very black. If you don't understand, then you're not sophisticated enough.
Well, if you don't understand the ending, you're not going to understand the beginning.
You can't have any pudding.
It's like enjoying a fine piece of haggis. Either you get it or you don't.
The problem isn't understanding the ending. It's asking why would you put that ending.
It's not what, it's why.
Why? You feel the ending. It's meant to be for the heart, not the head.
That's the thing. It's very compelling, and you remember that ending because you're sitting there going, "What the?" is going on here?" So that in that sense, it succeeds because you're stuck with that ending in your head. And as a kid, I could only imagine because seeing it as an adult, I'm just like, "Wow, that's pretty weird." But as a kid, if you saw that as like an 8-year-old or something, that would be pretty shocking.
Yeah, if you're a kid and you didn't see 2001.
Yeah, it makes me think of shows like Battlestar Galactica or Lost. They write themselves into a corner, and it's like, well, how do you end it? Okay, you see the black hole, you mad scientists and robots and ships blowing up because of asteroids. Poor timing on going through the black hole. You plan to do it right in the middle of an asteroid meteor shower, but
no asteroid.
They could have always gone on to do the Black Hole 1980.
What's that?
That was Galactica's answer. We'll do Galactica 1980.
Now with motorcycles.
And white uniforms.
Now with motorcycles, that's right.
Well, and this does make me think of Event Horizon, which was
that was a weird movie.
Now mash up these two movies. What a double feature.
Now, the Black Hole was made for, what was it, about $20 million, right? And then I think they made 35 at the box office. So it was like a minimal, it's like, well, we kind of broke even, sort of. But Black Hole was released just like 2 weeks after Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Which was a much bigger budget, but also made more money. But
didn't Moonraker come out in '79? Was it the summer of '79 or the fall?
Fall, I believe.
Yeah.
And when you think about both of those movies, The Black Hole and Star Trek: The Motion Picture, both, of course, hot on the heels of the original Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
They both decided to go in a slightly different direction because Star Wars just wild space fantasy adventure. With Star Trek and Black Hole, they both decided, no, let's go a little more somber, a little more serious, a little more 2001-ish with that. I can kind of understand that with Star Trek because Roddenberry, in talking about wanting to do a motion picture, said, I want to do something big and important and like a real kind of mind trip of a movie for the first Star Trek film. So I can understand that, but Disney not opting to do just a wild adventure,
I think it's the rewrites.
Yeah,
go back to the rewrites that hurt it. And one of the criticisms I will say, because I love the motion picture, it was almost like a retelling of The Changeling. That episode.
A bit. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The creator. Right. Is this it? It's like, oh, Jim, do not tell him you're not the Kirk. You know that. It was almost a retelling of that story. The other thing with the motion picture that hurt them is they had, a television series that was being worked on, then not going to be worked on, then worked on in tandem with the motion picture starting up, and then it stopped going into production, and then do we have Nimoy? Do we not have Nimoy? What do we do with Zahn? Little bit. With the Black Hole, man. I mean, you got to say something about casting because, like we talked before, those are some solid actors and actresses that they had, and I just didn't,
Again, I gotta blame the director because if you direct those actors, you give them a good script and you give them proper direction, they deliver. Ernest Borgnine, Maximillian Schell, Robert Forrester, even they deliver. They deliver. So I blame them. And by the way, you mentioned Zahn. Can we have a moment of sympathy for that poor actor who was going to be the next Spock? He was going to be in the new TV series. Then he was going to be in the movie. Yeah. And then Nimoy said, okay, I'll come back. And that actor played a minor role at the beginning of the thing and then disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Commander Branch.
Yes. Yeah. That poor guy.
A Planet 8 moment of silence.
Yes.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Poor guy. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys now, if you were to be contacted by the brass at Disney, specifically Kevin Feige, like, we've done this stuff for Marvel and, we're doing stuff for Star Wars, but, Lord Blood-Rah, Karen, Bob, I want you to work with me personally on a sequel or a reimagining of The Black Hole. What do you pitch?
I pitch a remake with some interesting characters in those slots. That's
and a good director.
And a good director, yeah. But I give the characters interesting quirks. I make the personalities interesting. I try to slot in some more adventurous set pieces even on board the ship. Make the robots just plain robots. I mean, come on with after the original Star Wars, we got such a glut of cute robots. I'm tired of cute robots. No more. But just because, like I said at the top, the premise is solid. It starts out almost like a mystery. How is that ship staying there? How is that possible? How is that happening? So make it a bit more of a solving a mystery thing with more action adventure to it, and cut out any kind of religious iconography when and if they go into the black hole. It might have been a better ending just for them to get the hell away from the black hole, because that's the disaster, right? I mean, right. in the Towering Inferno, nobody wants to jump into the fire. They're trying to get out of there, right? So that, maybe go back to the original roots as a space disaster film.
Okay.
And rewrite it from that angle.
Well, let me ask you this, because we didn't really talk about it. So we know about Bob, we know about Vincent. I love that they didn't explain why Maximillian was called Maximillian.
Yeah, thank God. They could not come up with a...
Right, mobilized, armored, zero. And it was like, oh my God, just...
But they also have that. They also have that weird, unexplained throwaway line where Reinhardt goes to Kate and says, "Save me from Maximillian."
Yes.
Right.
But nothing's ever made of that, or it's never explained, or whatever. It's just "Save me from Maximillian."
And that was an improv line from Maximillian Schell. He just improv that line. So the director said, "Yeah, put it in." He said something. Use it. Go ahead.
It sounded cool. Keep it in.
It sounded cool.
Yeah. Another thing they didn't build off of was Yvette Mignot's father was supposed to have been on that ship. Right. He was an officer on the ship, but it's like, oh, well, he died.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they could have, he could have still been there, or he could have they could have built something where his expertise was actually needed, so he wasn't zombified.
There you go.
And, they had to rescue him, do something like that, which put a little more personal stakes.
There you go.
In the story.
Some engineering bay down below, chained there, doing something. Yeah, there you go.
What if his body is dead, but his brain was kept alive to help run some significant part of the ship that keeps on the event horizon?
That.
Well,
and her psychic ability senses her father's presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, what if the technology that Reinhardt invented to keep them from going into the gravity well needed some of these psychic powers that the people might have had on the ship. So maybe the zombification was actually about harnessing these psychic powers in some way. Maybe he actually takes that part of the brain out and puts it in some sort of biocomputer or something. And that's
some way to use consciousness itself is the secret to being able to travel through the black hole. So you get kind of a trippy, almost spiritual, but not biblical, religious with it. Yeah, there you go.
It makes his crime even more heinous. Like his technology is more forbidden because of how he attains it.
Right. We have fixed the black hole, folks.
All right, let's go to Disney.
We have done it.
We're ready
Somebody
to
get
go.
Disney on the phone.
I would say straight up to Kevin Feige, just do yourself a favor and go make another Avengers movie or something, and just don't worry about the black hole. Just leave it in the past. It's been done.
Yes, not like he's looking for properties right now.
Yeah, you're not that desperate.
I agree with. I think we fixed the black hole. I think collectively, and I do have Kevin Feige on the line. Chief, can you hit the green button and bring him in? Feige, thank you very much. Welcome to Planet 8.
Have we got a movie for you, Kevin?
Click.
Oh, come on, Chief. It's not like we're trying to sell him a Gamera film.
Hey. Hey, I'll tell you, though, your whole idea about a consciousness running the ship and all that, it's been done. Captain Harlock.
Oh, sure.
That's the whole premise behind it.
It's all been done. It's just the way you do it. How do you dress it up?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
The whole premise behind the Arcadia. Yeah.
Nobody's seen that stuff, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, was it not Vex? Vex? The show where the ship is alive. Vex? Not Vex. I can't. I'm blanking on it.
Oh,
Voyager?
Hex? It was something like
the European thing with the chick with the
blue chick. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it either.
Hex. People are screaming at their
many years ago.
Devices right now.
Many years and many brain cells ago.
Lex.
Yes.
Lex. Yeah. Anyway,
how funny. Well, my friend.
Now before that, I mean, Larry had a little thing before we even started recording, where you had a black hole experience at Disneyland, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
This was the summer after the film had come out. Might have been the spring, and they had the advertisements and stuff around the Space Mountain ride at Disneyland. And, they didn't have any music, or it would have been cool if they had like Maximillian inside the ride welcome you onto the ship. But it just added a little extra oomph to the Space Mountain ride. For those of you that have ridden it, there's a little black hole up in the upper left corner, and then you go swinging around the galaxy in the cars. But yeah, it was cool. And, you never know. I mean, they're building a Tron cycle at Disney World. There's one, I think, in Shanghai, Disneyland. Who knows? We may yet get a ride on the Cygnus, avoiding asteroids, meteors.
Could be.
That was one of the great things about Uncle Walt. He did a made-for-TV movie about the Matterhorn, and let's sell the product and let's build a Matterhorn in my park.
Yeah, right. Well, they've built an entire Avatar land, and Avatar, really?
Yeah,
they did. Now, the Avengers campus and whatever.
Avengers is a hot property.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, they're making more Avatar movies, but I have no idea why.
I don't know.
James Cameron has nude pictures of people.
James Cameron bought Walt Disney's frozen head at auction and holding it for ransom. Well, my friends, with that being said, I've no more juggling or webs to shoot, so we've come to that part in the program for our censor sweep. And Lord Blood-Rah, want to give the mic over to you. You have some fun information to share with our listeners.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things coming up. The Creatures Con big convention event this year has been canceled again. We thought it was just kind of the best decision given the ongoing lessening but still ongoing virus situation. Excuse me. And in lieu of that, we'll be doing a show at the Orinda Theater in Orinda, California on Saturday, August 7th, called the Universal Monster Party. And we're going to be celebrating 90 years of the Universal Monsters. Ooh. Dracula and Frankenstein, Lugosi's Dracula, Karloff's Frankenstein, came out in 1931, both in the same year. And 90 years ago. And, of course, they kicked off the whole Universal Monster universe. So we're doing an all-day event Saturday, August 7th at the Orinda. We're showing the original Dracula, the original Frankenstein, and the film that revitalized the monster franchise in 1941, The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. And our special guest will be David J. Schell, whom, if you've seen the extras on all of the Universal official releases of the film, he's the filmmaker that did the documentaries there. He's also the author of The Monster Show, Definitive History, Cultural History of Horror, Death Makes a Holiday, The History of Halloween. Very learned, great guy. Really excited to welcome him as a special guest. And our other special guest will be none other than the mighty John Stanley, the host of Feature Features after Bob Wilkins. And tickets are available now. It's an all-day event. Oh, plus we're going to have vendors, a costume contest, an after party called the I Never Drink Wine Party right there at Cinecouve, right next door. And tickets are available now at creaturescon.com. You can check that out. I'm still doing the show, Lord Blood-Rah's Nerve-Wracking Theater, now in its 11th season. You can go to lordbloodrah.com to find where you can see that show. And I'm very honored to say that I've been nominated for the Horror Host Hall of Fame. Thank you very much. Right. I'm really, really honored to be nominated for that. Yeah, but definitely, we have a feeling that the Universal Monster Party is probably going to sell out, and selling out is a moving target now. because we're waiting to see what the capacities will legally be by August. So definitely go to creaturescon.com and get your tickets for that. That's going to be a great day. It's going to be fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. If it weren't for the fact that I was going to be off-world that weekend, I would most definitely be there.
Yeah, we'll be thinking of you.
We appreciate you being on the show again, Lord Blood-Rah. Always a pleasure.
Anytime. It's always great to be here.
And look, listeners, keep your thrusters handy. Your button on the thrusters. You don't want to fly in through that event horizon.
But if you do, report back to us. Let us know if the film was accurate, will you?
Yeah.
Let us know if you wound up in heaven or hell.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.